So, we're going to watch this Blue Jay video, How to Survive the Wild West. You got sneezes over there, are you? You okay? Alright. So we're going to watch this How to Survive the Wild West video. I don't know what this stick figure video is, but we're going to watch it. Is Blue Jay in here? We'll see. And then we're going to play Diablo 4 some more. I think we're going to get through and put an end to Lilith today because that's pretty much where we're at. So let's jump in.
On a train tracks in Red Dead Redemption and find yourself thinking, haha, I love the Wild West. Well, you're stupid. Firstly, because Red Dead Redemption takes place over a decade after the Wild West, silly goose. And secondly, because life in the American frontier was far from the bank robbing, gun flourishing, root tootin' wonderland we've all come to know and love in today's pop culture. But what if you just so happen to be best friends with an 80-year-old theoretical physicist who got stranded in 1885 and needs you to take his EPA-violating time machine built out of a stupidly overhyped car to rescue him from your high school bully's great-grandfather? Don't you worry, kiddo. Seeing as how this situation is all too likely, I decided to put together a little guide for all you McCree wannabes to show you exactly how to survive the Wild West.
Alright.
Here we are, Alex. The Wild West. The area of the United States that's vaguely defined by historians as being somewhere... The stunning landscapes are crawling with rich resources. Massive herds of American bison roam from the Great Basin to the Appalachians, while the expansive flatlands find themselves home to enough corn, beans, and squash to bring a tear to any Midwestern grandmother's eye. The geography ranges from grassy plains so large you might just call them great, to mountains so rugged you could even say they're rocky, to deserts so arid they've earned the rank of being the second hottest place on Earth.
It's true. If you just look at the way that we name certain geographical things in the U.S., it's fairly accurate depiction.
Second only to Markiplier's OnlyFans. And, of course, to accompany all these diverse ecosystems and resources are an equal number of diverse American Indian cultures to live off them. Oh my gosh, this is beautiful. You're right, this is not how I pictured the Wild West at all. So do I just, give my resume to a chief, or... Nah, hold up, don't go all dances with wolves quite yet, Alex. This piece of junk took us too far back. Just gotta calibrate this flux bullshitator. Okay, good to go. Hop in. That's more like it. Welcome to the Wild West. Despite its long-standing history, the archetypal Wild West period refers to only a small stretch of time between the end of the Civil War to the 1890 census, or the early 1900s, depending on which smart people institution you ask. But now we're standing on brand spanking new American territory, baby. Which was taken from Mexico and France. Who took it from Spain?
They say taken, but that's very rough summary. There was an entire war between America and Mexico, so you could say it was taken. However, there was a treaty that ended with us purchasing a lot of that land. Right. So it's not quite as taken as some people would like to believe. And if you go all the way back to the native tribes and you want to argue that it was taken then, you could make the argument. Not saying you can't, but the thing is, the tribe you're going to say had that land, because that's who had it when we expanded west, took that land from another tribe, who took it from another tribe, who took it from another tribe. So it really just becomes a point of, are you mad about people taking land, or are you mad about this one country? Because that's ridiculous.
Who partially took it from France? Who took it from the natives we just met, but still pretty new. Go on, taking a deep breath of freedom.
Like that,
what happened?
Like this map here, the Mississippi cultures, that's several very different tribes. The Comanche were only here during a specific period of time. Otherwise, they were pretty much here, and they were being attacked and controlled by pretty much all of them. So until the Comanche got horses, really, until the Spanish came to the Americas and brought horses, and the Comanche mastered horses, the Comanche were the punching bags of basically everybody else around them, right? And then during the Wild West days, we know the Comanche as the Native Americans that the Cowboys were mostly having to deal with in a, like, they're coming and attacking us and killing us kind of way.
As we just met, but still pretty new. Go on, taking a deep breath of freedom. What happened to them? You happened, Alex. Me, but I just got here. You sure did, and in record time too, thanks to your shiny new railroad system. A life-altering technological leap forward in rural transit, perfect for manifesting destinies and kickstarting Dust Bowls. But what about all the bison?
And built by the Asians who were basically slaves. Well, specifically, like, Chinese who were basically just slaves after slavery, right? So,
well,
there is that,
Alex,
too.
Surely we can't have all those 2,000-pound hunks of meat waltzing around on train tracks. Think of how dangerous that would be.
What?
2-pound hunks of meat waltzing bison. Well, Alex, surely we can't have all those 2,000-pound hunks of meat waltzing around on
I thought he said 200, and I was like, what the hell?
train tracks. Think of how dangerous that would be to our schedules. So those numbers were knocked down a couple million to open things up a bit, but only after we graciously borrowed their trails for railroad paths.
Now, I'm also going to point this out because this is another point of contention. This is horrendous. Okay? Not justifying this going on. But people like to point at American expansion and say that it was because of colonizers and white Americans that this happened and that this took place because of people like Buffalo Bill and etc. The thing is, historians calculated and document today that the Native Americans were already hunting the bison to extinction, and Western expansion by the United States only increased the rate at which that was taking place, but that they were already on the way to that.
Thanks, Bison. What? 60 million? They killed that many just to avoid some train damage or delays? Well, that and to force Native Americans into submission turns out pretty easy to do when you decimate their primary source of food and a major sacred symbol for many tribes. For perspective, think the devastation that befalls America today when Starbucks stops selling our current sacred symbol, the pumpkin spice latte, but multiply it by a couple thousand. Hey, Tahoma, I feel like we got off on the wrong foot, so I wanted to lighten things up a bit with a little joke that I came up with, seeing as how you people love those buffalo so much. What did the buffalo say to his son? Is it bye, son? No, he didn't say anything. Because he doesn't have a son. Because he's dead. I killed him.
Jesus. Yeah, I'm alright. It is what it is. Fun fact, the scientific name for the American bison is bison.
I killed all the bison, Tahoma. To the American settlers, the West symbolized independence and freedom from government, a proposition so tempting that people were willing to uproot their lives and travel hundreds of miles over land made traversable by state-sponsored railroads to homesteads made possible by federal legislation on land made open by government ammunition. You smell that, Ezekiel? That's freedom right there. No big brother here. Okay, this sucks, you win.
It's actually just annoying how they're going through putting this together to specifically just be like, see, America bad because of expansion. Like, there are bad aspects to it, but it's not like it's all bad. That's just a way that people have put a spin on it in more modern efforts with things like critical race theory, for instance. Like, they're just painting the entire country's history as bad and you as bad based on demographics and genetics, and trying to hold you accountable for things that happened hundreds of years ago. Like, Western expansion and stuff, you could be like, oh, well, that happened in the late 1800s. Yeah, sure. That's when it came to an end. But it started long before then. And not only that, but the fact is, these tribes, once again, were going to war with each other. They were enslaving each other. They just didn't call it enslavement. It was like, you would kill the men and you would take the women and children and make them part of your tribe now. Is that really any better? So, it's just a simple matter of, like, it's not... Is it great? No. But at the same time, America's still, like, the only nation in modern history that conquered a people, being the natives, and allotted them land to live on, which are current-day reservations, which are just smaller portions of what they were told they would have originally because they kept shrinking it down, and allow them to come up with their own laws and rules within those reservations that they want. And if you look at those reservations as an indicator, they can do anything they want on those reservations. Harvesting oil, harvesting minerals, harvesting, like, growing crops, ranching animals, building technology, creating nuclear energy, whatever it is they want to do, they can do on native land, basically. They get to essentially just create their own laws. No other country has ever done that. And not only that, but as an indicator, reservations aren't doing so great. And you could be like, well, they're not in the best spots to be in. Like, depends how you look at it. A lot of them are rich in resources. Rich in oil deposits, rich in mineral deposits. And it's just that doesn't get utilized, and they essentially just live in walled off portions of land that are homes, but they don't really have a lot of the times like power and sometimes water and things, right? That we just take for granted, and we would assume to be a situation of a third world country. A lot of the time that's how reservations are and exist. It's just like, here's a home, like a trailer home or a side-by-side, and they plop it down on the ground, and that's it. They don't have power or water there. It's just, here's the shelter, and now you live in it. Or a trailer, and here it is, and now you live in it. And it's not great, but I mean, they're also able to do whatever they want on that land, and that's what they're doing, which is baffling to me that people act like somehow America would be so much better and more fulfilling if the Native Americans just continued doing what they were doing, fighting each other, killing each other, taking each other's women and children, etc., etc. Like, it's not great what we did. At the same time, it's not perfect, but it did more so unify the mass of people within our borders than it did prior, and than it would have without it, whether we like it or not. And it's not ideal. The way we went about it was underhanded, shady, destructive. It was not an ideal thing. But none of us today were part of that.
And please take me back to my PlayStation. Oh, great. You just saved me 15 minutes.
Hey, get!
Shoot, he just took our catalytic converter. I thought this was the Wild West, not North Philly. Well, at least now we can get past the 8-minute mark, and Daddy needs his mid-roll, so lessons back on, Alex. Seeing as how you're here to stay, we're gonna need to hook you up with a career. Now, there were a ton of options, and with how expansive and diverse the various regions are, you really shouldn't generalize life in the Wild West. Anyway, let's heavy pick between a cowboy, miner, or prostitute. Oh, cowboy. Classic choice, Alex. Let me just cue up the VHS trailer for cowboys here.
And most miners were broke, never got anywhere.
13 minutes past the 13th hour on the 13th day of the 13th month, the McCormick County rabbit puncher James H. Wallace strode into the small town of Armadillo Baldeep looking for rabbits. As he turned the corner of Baba Skanky Shank and Dank Barber Shop, he spotted little Cindy Klein with her beloved bunny, Sir Hopsalot,
and an ice cream cone somehow.
Radish ice cream in Armadillo Baldeep State.
Radish ice cream?
Wallace grabbed poor Cindy's bouncy rodent and hoisted him in the dusty air, fist clenched in zealous anticipation to spread his rabbit-punching vendetta to Busball County. It was then that the heretofore unnoticed cowboy, Two Stone Filbert Cheesesteak, the sandwich sandwich-hating gunslinger stepped forward from the shadow of the Balloon Saloon to challenge the outsider to a duel. Legendary on neither side of the Mississippi, Filbert Cheesesteak stood in the dirt road across from his mammal-fisting adversary, hand hovering over his six-shooter. The bell rang and Wallace was shot down, losing on the draw after remembering he didn't own a firearm. Seeing the rabbit puncher slowly bleed out on the street, the cowboy approached him and, in a show of mercy, proceeded to stab him 37 times in the knee until he died from old age 2 minutes later. Cowboy Filbert Cheesesteak the Bunny Defender then rode off into the sunset, forever to be remembered for his heroic defense of Cindy Klein's honor by shooting and stabbing an unarmed foreigner. Well, Alex, what'd you think? That's awesome! I'd love to be a heroic gunslinging cowboy! Pew 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 pew. What? Oh no, that's just a teaser for a western film I'm making. That's not what a cowboy is. What you just witnessed is the modern interpretation of an Old West cowboy, made popular by Hollywood and dime novels. A valiant and mysterious gunslinging nomad who traveled from town to town to bring justice, often while fabulously dressed. But in reality...
Yeah, in reality, that shit really never happened. It, hardly ever happened. It was the anomaly and the exception that was the case. It was not the norm. It wasn't regular. It wasn't what was to be expected at all. So, congratulations. You're about to have your illusions destroyed.
All this need to understand what a cowboy does is the name itself. You herd cows. Well, this sucks. Don't speak too soon. This is probably the most chill part of your entire workday, which is about 15 to 20 hours, by the way. Your day of cattle driving, horse wiping, and repair providing was lonely and dull, which might sound like a dream at first to you introverts, I know my audience, until you take into account the pay of $25 to $40 a month, exhausting manual labor, and feeling almost as disgusted with yourself as I hope KFC's head chef feels. You'll get 6 hours of sleep at most, and unlike your working life, you won't be lonely in your bedroll. Your horse is your best friend until one wrong move turns you into its best training wheel, and of course there's the cowboy's worst nightmare, the stampede. Thousands of pounds of moo meat charging at top speed, crushing everything in their path, and all it took was one small spook to set one off.
How many people actually fell off their horse and got trampled, though? For real. I feel like that never really happened.
Craig, they hit the Pentagon. While overall pretty mundane, there were a handful of exciting aspects of a cowboy's career. For example, you've probably been sitting there thinking, but they play with cool swingy ropes. That's right, sport. They did in fact use lassos to wrangle cattle. However, it's often left out why they had to do this. I like this game. So what now? You busting my balls, Jesse? Wait.
Girls' Night In, Gummy Edition. Tonight we're having a small dinner party. All my roommates and I usually cook every night, but
one of the biggest events in a cowboy's career was the long drive, where they drove large herds of cattle to railroad stations to be sold off. While this is finally starting to sound like some cool cowpuncher stuff, a cowpuncher is another name for cowboy. Riding on horseback for thousands of miles is not as easy as it seems, something horse jockeys, Aiden Ross, or others used to riding could attest to. And sure, it might not be an adventure as fantastical as Clint Eastwood's, riding off with a beautiful woman of questionable age who you wooed from a small town after 2 conversations with. We've still got hundreds of open miles to roam with beautiful young Bessie here. Moo. Aw, she is sweet. She sure is. Now load her up, Alex. Where are we taking her to? I think the better question is, what are we making her into?
That's right.
A cheeseburger, Alex. What? Beautiful old Bessie is too precious to make into a burger. You're right. Maybe a filet mignon. I don't want to be a cowboy. All right, then.
We're gonna make
What's
steaks
next?
and chili.
I guess minor. Brilliant choice. No, you're later. Trailing off the...
You would make more money more often rather than being a miner, being the merchant who sold the miners the picks, the shovels, wheelbarrows, things of this nature, in order for them to actually do the mining, like selling them the pans to go and pan for gold and stuff. You would actually make more money selling them tools than you were likely to actually strike gold and make it big.
The tail end of the California gold rush, mining was a tantalizing proposition for men desperate to make their fortune. It was such a popular draw that many U.S. states were initially settled by prospectors and miners hoping to strike gold or silver. Howdy, partner. I heard there was gold in these parts. Sure. What's with the pickaxe? Why, to mine my fortune, of course. Alright, man. If that's what you're into, go on in. Well, thank you kindly, partner.
Little damp in here.
While a few managed to strike it rich, the unfortunate reality was that you were far more likely to find yourself working for poor wages and terrifying conditions. Keep in mind, these were the times where industrial safety was more of a punchline than a guideline, so you had a lot to worry about being an Old West miner, such as the 3 E's: explosions, electrocutions, and asphyxiations.
You also, I know for a fact this was a huge issue in Colorado, was the mining towns were owned by the mining companies. And if you were a miner in that company, or for that company in that town, you didn't get paid US dollars. You'd get paid, like, let's just say, you're in the Walmart mine, you got paid Wally dollars. Okay? So what they would do is, you went to work today, okay, that's $5. And then, okay, you need groceries. You've got to pay rent for your house. You're going to have to pay for that doctor bill because you had the flu last week. And your wife she had a kid, so you also have to pay for that. So you worked, and you're working all the time, but now you owe us $6. You're still $6 in debt, so maybe next week you'll actually be able to make some money, but until then you can just, keep building up a tab on everything in town, and we own all the buildings, because here at Wallyland, we are the ones who own the mine. We own every building in town. We pay all the wages, including, like, your wages, the doctor's wages, the grocer's wages. Everybody gets paid off of what we're doing. So then what happened is they tried to unionize. And what happened then was you had the governor of Colorado sent down the Colorado militia to rout the miners because they were protesting mining as being slavery, basically, because they were being treated basically like slaves. Like, we're paying you, but you never get ahead, right? So what would happen, or what did happen, was there were several times where miners and their families would use passing trains as cover to escape machine gun fire, as well as just cavalry and things of this nature, so that they could get away. There were a few times where the conductors on the trains would slow down the trains to remain in between the militia and the miners for as long as possible. And it created a huge issue. So, like, yeah, while explosions, electrocutions, asphyxiation, cave-ins, and these types of things would kill you, you were typically also not making any money. You were working yourself into debt, and you were also then being targeted by the government in some cases because you said this is unfair treatment and inhumane, and we were not going to put up with that.
Asphyxiation starts with an A. Some mines would utilize a long series of ladders to descend hundreds of feet into the earth, which meant if you were too tired at the end of the day, you might not reach the top successfully. So hopefully you haven't been spending 12 hours punching rocks or something. Silica exposure was also a problem, and miners would often inhale large amounts of it on the job, which would tickle their lungs a little bit. And by tickle, I mean silicosis, which became tuberculosis, which they died from at 10 times the national average. You'd also be exposed to carbon monoxide, poor ventilation, dirty drinking water, mercury poisoning, lead poisoning, arsenic poisoning, alcohol poisoning. Throw a dart at the periodic table and it's probably in your blood. Have to go? There's plenty of
also
room.
Fair.
Need to count to 10? Why don't you use your fingers? Just kidding. In a lot of ways, frontier mining was like a casino. You go in hoping to strike it rich, but inside you find flashing lights, bodily fluids, and in the end, the house always wins. Okay, never mind. I'll do
Like I said, you were better off owning the shop that sold the mining equipment to the miners.
anything but mining. All right, then. What's your next pick? Now hold on. The world's oldest profession is a common trope in Western films, but their prevalence and impact tends to be a bit overstated. For example, the popular idea that prostitutes were the first people to arrive and develop the West is more folklore than fact. In reality, they often waited until a community was more developed before, setting up shop, if you will.
That invasion is here, Rhodey. And we can't even tell.
Most women in the West pursued a variety of enterprises to make money. But don't you worry, Alex. Hookers certainly did exist. And while it wasn't most women's profession, less competition means more clientele. But why choose this?
Really, the people who created the opportunity to expand west were mountain men. To be quite honest, it was the mountain men. The hunters and trappers who went out there basically on their own. Some of them had families that they had on the East Coast, and they left them behind to go out to the west, become mountain men, hunting and trapping, selling and trading pelts, sending back money to their families, trying to support them from afar. Many of these people ended up building positive relationships with Native Americans. Some of these people that were married back east would now have a Native American wife in the west as well. Then you would also have not so great interactions with Native Americans, and some of these mountain men would get killed by them. It really just kind of all depended.
The scandalous life. Well, maybe you're a widow in need of cash, or a savvy entrepreneur looking to score big after a crypto ranch didn't pan out. But either way, you came to the Wild West for the same reason as everyone else. Opportunity and glory. Holes. For work, you've got quite a few options. You could be a residence prostitute, where, on the upside, you get to work from home, but on the downside, you get to work from home. Where your children live. If permanent psychological trauma isn't your parenting style, you could always join a brothel. These establishments were as traditional as it gets. Just an empty room and a bunch of bedrooms to learn about the birds and the bees. Uh-oh, here comes the boss lady with her Home Depot paint card. Don't mind her, she's just checking your skin color. Too much melanin puts you in the special room.
Yeah.
Maybe you'd rather be a saloon girl, who, a lot of the time, were not literal prostitutes, but rather women who would charm and revitalize the clientele of a saloon. But this was still considered pretty taboo. Merely having a woman
It's basically like being an escort instead of a prostitute, right?
Women in the saloon at all was already unheard of back east, where they treasured their masculinity so much that they couldn't have anyone around who liked men. That would be gay. Often called painted ladies, as the harlots had the audacity to wear makeup, saloon girls were often paid in alcohol sales, so you'll need to keep them binge drinking for as long as possible. You gotta charm them, talk them up a bit, form a one-sided emotional relationship. Trust me, I'm a YouTuber. While your clients are catching feelings, you'll be catching diseases like their Pokemon. Look, you've even got a few legendaries. Luckily, it's nothing a little visit from the Mercury Fairy can't fix. Getting stressed? Not to worry.
That's right, the Mercury Fairy's coming to solve the problems.
To help them deal with the woes of the trade. She does look calm. Yeah, opiates will do that. What, they just abused painkillers? Come now, that wasn't their only method.
Yes.
There's also codeine, chloroform, laudanum, tonics, and of course, good old-fashioned alcohol. But most importantly, you gotta ensure your social class in the red light community is well received. You don't want to be like Marianne over there, a widowed mother taking all the business she can get to support her kids. Disgusting. You want to be like Ash over here, who worked her way up the social ladder to eventually take on better ventures. Like owning prostitutes. Freedom is the ultimate goal of all red light women after all, and all it takes is a little elbow grease, business savvy, and not being Chinese. Assuming you secure...
Ah, there we go. Finally touched on it. You know, we already talked about the railroads and the trains, but you know, there we go.
A job, you now gotta find a place to live. Your options, of course, will depend on the region, and if you're far out on the frontier, you'll need to get your hands dirty and build your own house. If you got trees around, you can build yourself a log cabin. It's pretty simple, really. All you need to do is gather up several tons of stone for a foundation, chop down dozens of trees by hand, and lift 500-pound logs into place all by your lonesome. But in the end, you'll have a roughly 10 by 20 foot cabin, which is plenty of room for you. And your wife. And your 10 kids. Recycling stuff from your journey out west will also save you a lot of time. Empty barrel? That's a rocking chair. Storage trunk? How about a dresser? Dead kid? You mean fertilizer. All in all, your log cabin will be cramped, cold, and pretty much just block the wind a little. But hey, if the Unabomber could live in one, so can you. But out on the plains, you don't have any trees. Just a bunch of grass, really. So the settlers had...
Speaking of which, the Unabomber was found dead yesterday. There is that as well.
Had to coordinate an intricate supply chain effort to source materials. Nah, they just use the grass. Introducing the sod house, which is one letter off from sad. Much like your first time playing Minecraft, a sod house had a pretty creative design.
It's not even like a whole letter off. It's literally just, instead of just a circle, you do a circle and you just have a line, right? Like it's one line off of being sad.
Your floors were made out of dirt. Now for your walls, let's use some dirt. As for your ceiling, better go with the classic, dirt. You can practically already see the smile on the wife's face when she sees this. Here we are, dear, our new home. This? What is this? A sod house, made out of high-quality dirt.
Yeah, we're living like hobbits.
Away from the backyard. This is disgusting. Why on earth would you drag our family out here to live like pigs? This is what you wanted! You always said you wished we were dirtier in bed! Despite the near-total isolation, you will get some visitors from time to time. As one settler wrote, every afternoon the rattlesnakes would come out of their hidden dens in the walls and roof and sun themselves on the western windowsill.
And I'm not gonna lie, if you had rattlesnakes who just came out and chilled in your windows like that, you know you got some food. So, you can definitely eat those rattlesnakes.
Fun, Cinderella. As you can imagine, even the best of sod houses would leak when it rained, but at least that means you'll have a fun little indoor water park. You know, so long as the roof doesn't decide to join in.
There you
Your
go.
journey out west was quite the environment change, from the big city to the back rooms. And with all this space, the kids had plenty to do. Running in a circle, running in a square, developing prairie madness, you know, the life. Despite the lackluster conditions, frontiersmen did do their best to introduce some comfort to the home. For example, as a substitute for wallpaper, some families just plastered their walls with newspapers to help keep out drafts. So now you can add reading the wall to your list of fun home activities. But at this point, we're pretty much just one straitjacket away from an insane asylum. While the Wild West was a rather violent place with high murder rates, it wasn't as if you had to dodge bullets every day like Hollywood would make you believe. Unless you're a native. In fact, many Wild West towns would have you turn in any guns you had upon entry, so don't fret too much about bandits, no need to worry over gunslingers. In fact, the only gun you really need to be worried about is your own, because life in the Wild West was boring as shit. There were still a few hobbies you could pursue, like alcoholism. Drinking was very popular in the Wild West, so much so that doctors poured almost as much liquor as barkeeps, which was fantastic for people like priests who couldn't be seen entering the latter. And luckily for you, the Wild West was home to many creative individuals who came up with some rather interesting concoctions. Take Nicholas Ambrose, for instance, who was drinking liquor when he thought to himself, yeah, not enough spiders. Introducing tarantula juice, a cocktail famous for having a strong bite and causing muscle spasms that felt like having dozens of baby tarantulas crawling on your skin.
Why would you do that? Oh my god. Yeah. There's plenty of things in the West that you could do to entertain yourself. And the thing is, when you're not surrounded by just a plethora of people and civilization, you're going to find other things to do, and you're going to experiment with more stuff to figure out what you can do to make life better or more fun, more interesting, and easier to live. Because you're forced into doing so.
Go on, take a sip, Alex. Muscle spasms, huh? Sounds like something a sugar rush would do. No, it sounds like something a neurotoxin would do. And that's because this fun little potion was made up of wood grain alcohol, rosin, tobacco juice, sulfuric acid, hydrogen cyanide, and everyone's favorite rat poison, strychnine, which is making its third appearance on this channel. With all those flavors, tarantula juice was said to produce effects similar to methamphetamine. Now, if you aren't in the mood for lockjaw, you could always go for a classic drink, but be careful, ordering liquor out here was kinda like playing Minesweeper. Uh-oh, looks like someone hit a mine. Don't worry, you're not gonna explode. I think. I mean, you did just drink gunpowder. I ordered whiskey! That you did! However, many Wild West saloons would cut their whiskey with things like gunpowder, cayenne, or even ammonia to save on liquor costs. Here you go. Hey Keith, this whiskey smell funny to you? Oh yeah, keep it quiet, but I've been cutting the whiskey with this cheap almond juice to save money. Almond juice? This is ammonia. Like to unclog a sink. You can't be serving
with almond juice. He calls the ammonia almond juice. Like you're gonna cut whiskey with not liquor. Oh my god. It did happen a lot. It did happen a lot.
Serving this to customers. My cells hurt. Let me see that. Oh, I thought it said almond juice. How could you possibly think that? Are you dyslexic? Severely. What?
Well, most people
Keith, you
can't
know
read in a period of time.
Sir, I still haven't seen any dangerous accordions. Gee, Alex, you're not looking too good. Well, fortunately, we'll be able to fix you up at our next stop, the local medicine show. Combining healthcare and showbiz, these exhibitions featured a traveling salesman who would use entertainment to draw a crowd and peddle whatever poppycock miracle medicines they had on hand. This entertainment could include everything from storytelling to magic shows to freak shows, which I covered already in this little guy. These acts would continue until the salesmen sold off all their patent medicine, which weren't actually patented, but the word sounded cool, so they used it anyway. To help prove the effectiveness of their tonics, they would often insert paid actors into the audience, who they could then...
Cocaine toothache drops. Because we didn't always have a war on drugs. Okay? Not always. It's a very, very much so a new thing. And, counter-fucking productive.
And pretend to pick out at random to miraculously cure of all their ailments. Gather round, folks, and feast your eyes, for I've got tonics, treatments, and dyes. As for your ailments, do not fret nor cry, for I have arrived, Mr. Dr. Delight.
He's a snake
What
oil
incarnation
salesman.
Did he say? Oh, Kansas. Me have medicine. Oh, he got them cures. Wow, them be some fancy tonics. I got that chlamydia. Do they work, though? I love drinking fluids. Now, to demonstrate the healing abilities of my patent medicine, I shall request the assistance of an audience member. Me? Yes, you, sir. Come on up and tell us what ails you. I've got this really bad cough. Wow, sounds genuine. No worries, stranger. I've got this cure for you. My gluten-free snake oil mercury miracle shall wash away all coughs, pains, and kinks whilst invigorating the body. Oh my gosh, my cough is gone. As you can see, he is now cured. My vision.
So now, this is just an example of something that is very well known to have taken place in the Wild West, right? Snake oil salesman. Now, the thing is this still takes place today. What do you think every scam is? They're snake oil salesmen. They're just the snake oil salesmen of today. That's all it is. It's the same stuff, different day, new scam. It's been going on since the beginning of time.
Jesus, I can see for miles. Yes, another perk. Your vision shall be sharpened. Holy, I understand differential calculus. The tonic enhances the mind. And I'm fluent in Italian. Mamma mia, spaghetti and the meatball. All right, that's enough now, stranger. Oh my God, my penis so big. Jeez, they fell for that? Crazy, right? Getting their healthcare advice through performative entertainment? That's ridiculous. The people of the past were clearly way stupider than we are today. However, those weren't the only shows in town. You could also go see a minstrel show, a form of theater consisting of various skits and acts, which were also quite inclusive. Look, not only did they have white people, but also black people. Played by white people. Don't worry, Alex, these shows eventually died out, but some say their legacy lives on in the form of Canadian prime ministers. You could also go to a rodeo and watch men simulate a battle against...
He's got to be the most prolific blackface practitioner of all time, to be quite honest. Every time that comes up, I see a new picture I didn't see before. That one wasn't new, but like when I see people bring up like, oh, he does blackface, I see a picture I never saw before in every one of those videos. I'm always like, oh wow, a new one. He has to have done this more than anybody else ever.
Animals on the frontier by mildly annoying them. Or you could go explore it yourself. Just look out for everything. Want more thrills? How about you go see a dead body? Or maybe watch them get made. Feeling Vice-like? Why don't you try your hand at gambling? Uh-oh, looks like we got a sore loser. Where's the sheriff when you need him?
Yep.
Oh, there he is. All in all, the hobbies weren't numerous, but at the end of the day, you're just looking for something to dull the pain before you get back to work the next day. Now let's talk about the hygiene. Oh, hey, is that your scientist friend? Yes, Doc, please get me out of here. I can't take this. I don't want to be a hooker. I just want to play my PlayStation. Please fix the time machine. I can't live in a dirt house. I don't want to, like, spider liquor. Calm down, Alex. I would, but transporting back in time has taken a toll on my mental fortitude. My fundamental cognizance of arithmetic and the phenomena of physical interactivity has diminished. English, Doc. I don't understand math anymore, Alex. Oh, Doc. Looks like someone could use a little refresher on their fundamentals. Even a time-traveling prodigy physicist can get a little rusty. But luckily for you, Brilliant.org is one of the best online resources out there to learn about math and science interactively. It's got thousands of lessons, from logic puzzles to physics to casino probability.
What a way to roll into your
jackpots every single time. Blue Jay is using sarcasm. As many of you know, I work full-time as a chemical engineer, and having graduated from college a few years back, I noticed my engineering fundamentals were beginning to weaken. So I've personally found Brilliant quite brilliant for brushing up on some of my core STEM skills as I worked my way through their differential equations course. As a visual learner, Brilliant worked great for me, and with a very interactive, low-pressure, and intuitive design, anyone from an aspiring learner to a lifelong professional can master super applicable skills and reach their goals without needing a huge time commitment. To try everything Brilliant has to offer free for a full 30 days, visit Brilliant.org/BlueJay or click the link in the description. The first 200 of you will get 20% off Brilliant's annual premium subscription. Thank you, Brilliant, for sponsoring the video.
Great Scott! Alex! I've remembered how to time travel! Yes, let's leave! Sure thing, we just need a few 100 grams of zinc. Alex, my boy, tell me, do you know how to mine?
Here you go, buddy. The Wild West. Boring and dirty, but gave us Val Kilmer's best performance. 5 out of 10 stars.
It's all a matter of perspective. That was a good video, but I mean, it's really all a matter of perspective.